Let's have an AI bingo and talk about ChatGPT, LLM, ML, RAG, MCP, GenAI, and more.
Welcome to the Foojay Podcast, all your news about OpenJDK.
This is part 3 of the interviews recorded at the JCON conference in May. In the previous part, you learned more about how you can be a better Java developer and how Java has evolved and keeps evolving. But of course, artificial intelligence and large language models were a hot topic at the conference. I collected all the interviews around this topic in this episode, and you will learn more about the different technologies we can use in our Java projects. I also checked with my guests how to compare Java to Python for AI-related development. Let's start with Pasha Finkelshteyn, who had 2 talks at the conference, one of them being about converting from a ChatGPT user to a pipeline creator to process documents. I asked him to explain the difference between RAG and MCP, 2 hot topics within AI.
They're very different. I think that MCP is essentially a protocol for AI to communicate with some sources or some tools. Probably find information there, but it's much wider. It can tell. We actually have a booth right here that says with MCP allows car to drive. You type a comment in the chat and the car goes forward, turns left, and so on. Very simple, but nice to type. RAG is all about prompt augmentation. Like, we need to find a relevant information to what the user actually asked. Put this information inside the prompt and ask LLM what it sees inside this information. For example, we just had made this experiment with K Horstman. There is a new JEP that about structured concurrency in Java. It's 502, if I remember correctly. So we loaded this JEP inside our vector database, my machine, and asked ChatGPT to give us an example of code using what it learned from this JEP. And actually the answer was very good. No hallucinations, no anything, and the new syntax that was introduced in this JEP.
So summarized, RAG is to help the model to know more about your product, for instance?
Yes, mix some data, some actual data into a prompt to help model to answer questions in a more relevant way. Not just hallucinate or not search somewhere inside its, I don't know, inside its black box, right? Weights and measures. We give this information in plain text automatically, and model like, okay, I know the answer. Or if we didn't find anything relevant, then model will say, sorry, I don't know anything.
Okay. Is Java a good language to build this kind of things? Because a lot of people think Python is the way to go.
Absolutely. Python is a way to go when we want to build AI itself, because all the tools are there, PyTorch, Keras, and so on. But if we need only to communicate with tools, Java is amazing. Actually, there are 2 technologies, Spring AI and LangChain4j, which give you certain level of abstraction from all these models and so on. And they actually solve problems for you, like how to communicate with the model, how to put data in vector database, how to create a prompt. Almost everything there is automated. Essentially, the demo I gave on my first talk was like 20 lines of code or so. And it was very simple. My code was in Kotlin, but it doesn't make any difference. I just wanted to use Kter HTTP client. That's why I used Kotlin. Otherwise, I could as well use Java.
Isn't it amazing how fast something like LangChain4j and Spring AI was developed by the community to bring all this AI madness into Java?
I mean, absolutely. It's amazing. It's very cool that Python community had influenced them so much. Like LangChain4j, we should admit, wasn't created from scratch without any prior knowledge, right? There was Python LangChain, and it was an interesting project. And it is so cool that you can take Python code and be inspired by it and create a new API in Java, which is actually very robust and comfortable to use, as well as Spring AI, obviously. They have slightly different paradigms, but, well, Spring Team is very well known for designing good APIs. Essentially, my whole life, I didn't like only one of their APIs. It's Spring Security. Now it became much, much better.
Is there more that could influence languages in both directions? Of course, we are at the Java event. We are all Java lovers. But yet there is no good or better language than another. Each has its purpose.
Yep.
Do you think we should be influenced with Java more by other languages?
I think that diversity is very good for any sphere. The more diversity you have, the better product, because the more inputs you have, and you can adapt your output to this input. And this is very important. So yes, it is very important to look at other languages, take the best part of them, implement them in Java when feasible. And it's totally normal to discard ideas as well. Like, I'm not a huge fan that we discarded the idea of string templates, but they were considered insecure for whatever reason. So we discarded them, and that is a good thing. Like, we can make decision based on data, based on evidence, so on. At least we have this idea. If not other languages, we probably wouldn't have it.
And string templates, they can reappear if they find a better solution on how to implement it.
I really hope so.
Simone de Gijt came to JCON as a speaker about the impact of AI on our learning capabilities. Should we use AI to learn? And you might guess the answer, as it's the answer to all software-related questions.
It depends. As with everything, right? It's basically about the fact that if you are learning new stuff, then there's, of course, this risk of becoming too over-reliant on it. And that you are simply copy-pasting what you find online. And how are you going to judge that if you don't have any base knowledge on the matter yet? If you're learning new stuff, how are you going to evaluate if the AI is speaking the truth? Which could lead to you, as they say it, you can fall asleep at the wheel. And this is basically when AI takes over, and instead of that, you don't use it as a tool anymore. So AI is in control instead of you. And that in time can seriously harm like critical thinking, problem solving skills, etc. So there's definitely a big risk.
I just started an experiment thanks to Claude AI to help me.
Perfect.
First thing that happened was documentation that it was based on was probably outdated.
Mhm.
So my dependencies were already wrong. So no, you should not trust it and really use it as a step-by-step to guide you through a new project maybe?
My recommendation is to, first of all, find your source of truth. And with that being said, AI isn't a source of truth because it's not written by an author. It is not reviewed or evaluated by peers. It is a prediction tool. So you need to find indeed your source of truth from somewhere else, from someone you can really trust.
More tips that you give during the talk about what not to use, what to use?
Yeah, we really point out that you can, of course, use it to inspire your ideas because it's a great idea generator and it can actually benefit your critical thinking if you use it to reflect on where you're currently at, what is your current thinking process, to give new perspectives. But you need to be so aware that you are in control and that you not let AI take over, that you first try stuff out yourself, make mistakes. That's fine because it will gain a deeper understanding of the material, right? But after you tried stuff out and you tried multiple things and you're finished, either because you're completely stuck and you don't know how to continue anywhere else, or because you're satisfied, then include AI to give you either a possibility to untangle or to give you new perspectives on how you can simplify it, how you can do it in a different way. So yeah, always think first, do first, and then invite AI to the table. Much like a tutor, right? Like use AI as a tutor who will never give you the answers straight ahead. Yeah. It always comes later. And tutors will help you plan your learning, structurize your learning, and give suggestions on how to continue.
I do a lot of writing. What I found very useful was copying a block into chat and ask for a summary.
Oh, yeah.
And then what's missing. Other uses you see as a programmer or different use like writing or something else?
Yeah, what I just mentioned a little bit, like a big advantage of participating in a course is the fact that you get a tutor, and this tutor is making a planning for you for the duration of the course. It's structurizing your learning, like what should you learn first, what should you learn second. And AI can also do that for you, right? It can really tailor like where you're at now, how should you plan it, different, like even it can even make an agenda for you, basically. And with every session you do, it can grade your current like progress and say, okay, then the next session should be, or your next learning episode should be about this and that. And summarizing is a great way, I think. But I do notice, and I also read that back in articles and from personal experience, that summarizing on the bigger scale is nice, but again, in retrospect. So you first kind of need to read the article yourself, because the devil's in the details and the hallucinations are as well. So you need to have a general concept of the article that you're feeding the AI before you blindly trust the summary that comes out of it.
So we're now talking about code generation with LLMs. How do you look at Java and AI in a program? How we can use AI, like LangChain Foojay, using it in a Java application? How do you think those are already good? Do they replace what we can do with Python?
I think we're very much at the starting phase of that, right? Like I think especially if you go to conferences like this, a lot of talks are about it. But if you talk to the people in the hallways, not a lot of people are actually working with it currently. So I think it's a little bit hard to say. And I feel that there are a lot of green projects around that haven't really been proven in production yet. So it's a little bit early to say if this will really have the big impact that we're all talking about, I feel. But there are definitely a lot of ideas going around. So
yeah, but are not a lot of these a bit overhyped?
I think so. I think there's a lot more to it than simply vibe coding your way to make a nice GUI and do like this idea generation, because it can indeed, if you vibe code or if you just generate like this GUI to pitch your new innovation idea, it can work with that. But is it really sufficient enough for production use? Is it really secure enough for production use? Hallucinating all around, like, I don't think we're there yet.
Steve Poole used the hallway track, where you bump into all different people, to learn about the AI interest and feelings of Java developers.
But it's so nice to catch up with people. And one of the things that I've been doing, and one of the things we've been talking here, is trying to see whether we can start to build some AI Java workshops or even on conferences, because we know that lots of Java developers need to learn about AI. There are a lot of AI tools out there. And so what I've been talking to people is that, can we bring that together? Not so much as a conference, but more maybe as an unconference or something, and get a bunch of the AI vendors, all the different tools guys, to come along and share, and invite Java developers to come and meet these people and learn what's going on. Because AI is a different beast, and Java developers, like everybody else, have learn how to use it, and it's moving very fast. So for me, the most exciting bit has been just how willing people are to entertain the idea of doing something where we bring the vendors and the experts and the developers together to share knowledge.
How do you look at this AI evolution? Are you scared or are you fascinated? What's your feeling?
So I've been writing a lot about AI from legislative point of view, because there's a lot of legislation happening. There's lots of legislation in the cybercrime side as well, which is I'm very interested in. So from an AI point of view, generally I'm not skeptical in general, but I am skeptical of all the people claiming that using LLMs to generate code is an easy thing. And I really don't believe that. There are certainly people coming up with AI tools that can generate code, but they're not LLMs. And so I think there's a bit of a hype, but I use LLMs all the time. I mean, for almost everything. But in terms of generating code, they're not my choice, because I spend too much time debugging. When and if somebody can get an AI to reason properly, not statistically reasoning, then it'll be a game changer. That may happen soon, that may not. In the meantime, I look at AI as being an enabler for everybody, but it's one of those things I'd say, as a developer, people say, AI is going to get rid of your job. But it's like, no, that's never going to happen. What is very likely to happen is that the developer knows how to use AI tools. And that doesn't mean just generating code. That's like understanding code or teaching you about particular new features, or using the AI as a helper. That makes you more powerful, and that will get you a job. And that could easily put somebody who's not that skilled out. So I think that's what I see. So there is a disruptive thing going on here. It's going to be interesting this time next year, when we're here next year, how much has changed and how much is evaporated.
And you focus also a lot on security. So what could go wrong with security-wise if you generate code a lot?
It's unfathomable, right? So what could go wrong? The code itself is almost all the code that's generated comes from the training data, and the training data is public data. So what you're getting is effectively the average of the public code out there. And you've got to remember that LLMs don't look at code as code. They have no understanding of code. It's just text. So actually, it's how good the doc is that goes along with the code for it to work out what the code is going to be. So poor doc or old doc can get the LLMs confused and can generate code that won't compile. That's quite common. And then now we're talking about looking at the world where we have agents that generate code. So apart from my skepticism about how often that will actually work, think about the power you're giving an agent. If you say, oh, I want something posted on Twitter, and you say to an agent, go figure out how to do it, and it's got the power to learn how to do that for sure, but then generate the code and run it, that's very powerful. And if you give the bad guys getting their hands on that, or you just make a mess of it, you've just given this thing autonomy over you. It's power over you. It's just really scary. So don't do that.
So we can agree you're a little bit scary too.
It is very scary. Lots of people are into the hype of this. I've done 2 talks last week, which was about how AI can be weaponized and how AI is used against us. And one of those was about how the bad guys use AI to weaponize your code. So there's an enormous amount of possibility for the bad guys. And because we're learning, we're behind them, and they are very expert at this stuff. So we are entering a new world where for a period of time, we're going to be less security capable than we were. Scary.
A bit scary message to conclude, but something we need to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sandra Ahlgrimm, cloud developer advocate for Java at Microsoft, sees a lot of benefits of using Java for AI.
If I want to use AI services for my productive environment, obviously I don't want to switch the language. So I want to stay with Java. And using a framework like LangChain4j, Spring AI, or semantic kernel for Java will reduce the friction if, for instance, the model API changes, or if I need to switch the models, because apparently I know we all love specifications, but for AI models, we don't have something specified yet. Everyone does what they want to do, so it makes sense to have some sort of wrapper. So that's why we're doing an introduction and also compare a bit LangChain4j, Spring AI, and semantic kernel for Java.
Which is the best?
Well, that's a total biased, opinionated question. So if you ask my employee, you will have to use semantic kernel for Java because it's going to come up with support and everything. But for me, the community-driven version of LangChain4j always drives me, and I feel the community is very rich here. But apparently, we also have Spring AI, which is backed with the Spring team. So all three have their market, I guess.
I think I saw the first demos of this at Devox 2 years ago and some Voxts. We already talked about this today. It's amazing how quickly the Java community and Microsoft and others have built these libraries to make AI so easy to use in a lot of projects.
It's impressive, right? We have Dimitro, who's like obviously doing the most job. Wonderful. Please keep on working. And then we have Julian Dubois, my manager from Microsoft. We have Julian Lafoche from Google, and all the other Red Hat and IBM colleagues, and also from Gradle, Maven. We have support from everyone. So I really see this is driven by the community, and I also like the buffs, for instance, that we had at Davos France just a month ago. So yeah, I feel the communication channels are very open. So that's something I really value about LangChain4j.
Microsoft also has a lot of these services that they offer. Are there new things coming from Microsoft in this respect of services that you will offer, or what are the most popular things at this moment?
So we do have Microsoft Build coming up in 2 weeks. I didn't plan for this advertisement, but yes, there is Build coming up where we have a lot of announcements to be made. And since we are putting this live, I can't say much because I'm not sure what's...
What you can announce.
Yes, because being in advocacy, we always know up front, and then I need to be careful what to say and what not. But I just got pinged by another community member that my audio support pull request for LangChain4j really needs to make it being merged. So I will work on this night. So hopefully we get that soon.
Okay, audio support. So what will it be able to do?
Like using Azure OpenAI and OpenAI, like just talking to it. So like speech to text and text to speech.
Grygleski talked about GenAI, so she is the perfect person to explain it to us and how it differentiates from other uses of AI and LLMs. We also discussed the power of small models that you can run locally on your own machine and the community AI work.
I'm here to do a talk about building a data pipeline. I call it ChatGPT, but essentially generative AI types of data pipeline, experimenting with it, and also specifically too with rising wave stream processor, and then essentially just see how data pass through and kind of construct, taking the output from that stream and then construct a prompt and send it to LLM and see what happens, kind of thing. But essentially, yeah, it's a Gen AI type of talk. So yeah.
And the Gen AI is based on data, on text file. Where does it get its knowledge?
Sure. So for now, well, for LLM, I'm just going to use an LLM, let's say like OpenAI, one of the large language models, the GPT 4.0 or 01 or something. And so and where does it essentially gets trained, whatever data it is trained on by the GPT 4.0. But I'm also thinking of, because it's kind of meant to be a bit more live coding, I can also do it like locally using Ollama and just interacting. Let's say I currently do also have like Llama 3 that I connect with, but everything is kind of the smaller model, so I can run it locally. So so it's just basically based on those publicly available models that I download, locally as well. So yeah.
I think these things are really great. I was experimenting with a chat-based conversation about setting up a new project. I was looking for a way that I could translate these podcasts to another language or just have a transcript. It's amazing what you can do with local models nowadays.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, local models too. I think it is very true. Local models tend to be, unless you have very powerful, processor and also very, big disk space to hold one of the larger models. Otherwise, if you do the smaller ones, they tend to be less accurate. But still, for the most part, I think it works pretty good if you are just not going to ask something too specific or too obscure kind of thing. But it is actually, I do have to say, if we use ChatGPT, this technology correctly, it does help, right? A lot of things too. It can do things quite nicely, like sort through a lot of documents and extract information that you want, kind of like that. Yeah. But as such, as we also know too, these LLMs, this ChatGPT technology is not that reliable in sense because they are non-deterministic. The technology is more fuzzy logic. So it's just the nature of it too. So, but otherwise too, let's say you want to write an essay, sort of a one-shot deal, right? It actually can do its job quite well, like you said. Yeah.
The only thing I was struggling with that it doesn't recognize the name Foojay.
Oh.
It makes something very strange out of it, but I can probably train it to recognize it.
That is very true. Yeah, it is true. If you do anything specific and it doesn't know, then it won't know. It's this kind of, people like to say like garbage in, garbage out. So it's more sort of like what you train it with, that's what it knows about. Yeah, like that. But it is true. There are good things about it, and also kind of be cautious too about things that it may not work too well. So yeah.
Should I do AI development with Java? Because everyone thinks Python is the way to go, but I think Java is just as good.
Actually, that's the thing, right? Us too, we are so involved with the Java ecosystem. To me, I think if we want to be serious about using Java or kind of doing this type of AI operations on a larger scale, on a more kind of complicated kind of scenario, I think Java will shine versus, let's say Python. I do have to say too, is interestingly, I was in Hong Kong like last week, actually visiting my sister, and then I happened to speak at the Hong Kong open source meetup group. And they also at the same time invited another speaker, happens to be also from the US, and he's quite well known. He wrote a book about Polars, which is a data frame library in Python, quite popular now. But actually, he's also an expert, and he did tell me that basically, well, don't quote me, but we were chatting, and he did say, well, when it comes time, right, you want to do something quickly, not more demo thing. It does a great job, Python. But if you want to do something more serious, like doing a production level, things that can scale, handles concurrency, Python doesn't do a very good job. We all know. But this is also where Java can shine so well, the distributed systems, the industrial strength. I think, to me, right, I think there are already effort in the Java community, within even Java champion, within ourselves. We feel we have so many experts. We should really come out now and promote Java as the choice of language platform for doing serious type of AI operations. I think Java will shine too, just because it handles distributed computing concerns so well. Yeah, as we all know.
And we already have very good Java libraries. I know LangChain4j. I've experimented with that. Do you use any library in your project, in your presentation?
Sure. I actually have used Spring AI so far, although people say, oh, Spring AI isn't quite, the thing, which is true. It's still kind of new, but I think it has made a lot of progress within the past year or so since it came out to support GenAI type of operations, and its model, it seems to be good. And now it also integrates too with the model context protocol, which is like for interacting with LLM standardized way. But MCP as such is more for lower level kind of thing, and it's perfect for Java. If you want to write, a agent library, for example, it can do so well. So Spring AI is what I've worked with so far, but I also did a talk with Daniel from Red Hat, and he works with Quarkus. Quarkus itself also has come out quite strong to have integration really well with LangChain4j. So did Spring AI with LangChain4j as well. So I feel too, in time, these libraries will get caught up too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, Python can do its job, all that stuff, but the language platform itself is not as ready for the real kind of industrial strength kind of thing. But I feel Java should be able to get caught up. Yeah.
You mentioned Spring AI is quite new, but isn't this whole thing quite new?
Yes, actually, you're right, dear Frank. Everything is new. Yeah, even we say, okay, it's new, but this Python isn't that much, older. But it is very true. Python did come out first to handle a lot of the data thing, right? And I think it's because Python does have an advantage of easier to do. You not worry about types, being more kind of not the static typing, more dynamic stuff, but it has this drawback. But it is true, it's more easily adapt or kind of, taken up by less people who are data-centric, data scientists tends to be paying more attention to the subject matter, which is the data, less about programming. So I think it's just that it's the nature of it. Python is more easily anybody can pick up. But when it comes to serious stuff, I think Java is the one. It requires a deeper understanding. I mean, from the coding computing point of view. So, but you're right too. It's even Python isn't that new, that old. Yeah.
It's libraries, yeah. But isn't that amazing that the whole Java community picked up something so drastically new, like this whole AI stuff, and created LangChain4j and OpenAI and Spring AI. Within a year, I think we went into from nothing to a very reliable productivity a quality tool like LangChain Foojay?
I totally agree with you. I think it also reflects on the capability of the engineers in this ecosystem. I think it really shows that people understand truly deeper the computing needs and stuff. So they are able to actually get caught up quite well, and they can talk deeper into these concurrency matters, distributed computing, a bit more on, that's true, the lower level technical details, which is so essential in building any type of computing platform. So I think that's why I feel I'm fully confident with the level of intelligence, people that are from the Java community. I think we can definitely be able to come up with something quite strong, in no time. And exactly like Frank, you said, we started getting caught up, and it's been great. Not that long, but it's still, I think, we're able to put together these SDKs and that can do some amazing things. So yes.
Jonathan Vila of Sonar gave a talk at JCON about infrastructure as code. I wanted to learn from him what I can do with code to run my application. But he also warns us about the dangers of AI when using an LLM chat to assist us.
Well, basically, in this talk, I'm not really covering Java, but the different artifacts that a Java developer in the end uses. So we need to deploy our application in Kubernetes, in Docker, or in any platform. So we usually combine our Java files with Kubernetes YAMLs, for instance. So in some cases, people think that code quality only refers to the Java code, but also impacts infrastructure as code artifacts, secrets hard-coded, non-specifying the limits in a Kubernetes pod. So there are a lot of best practices and issues to check that with the right tooling and methodologies, we can also have high quality in infrastructure as code files.
Okay. AI is a hot topic. Is AI involved in infrastructure?
Obviously, yes. Yes, these days we can generate Docker files or Kubernetes files with AI prompting just create the deployment files for my application. Surprise. It's not always as reliable as we would like. So definitely we need to check. We need to understand what it is doing. So not committing blindly. We need to understand. We need to think that we spend 80% of our time reading code. So it's a lot. Definitely we should invest time on checking that the code and the infrastructure as code that we are adding to our repository is in high quality, and it doesn't contain errors, images, outdated images with vulnerabilities, or even not setting the right properties when we are putting a pod or a deployment or whatever. Yes.
And secrets is probably also a hot topic, keeping your secrets out of your repository or your flow.
Yeah, because the problem with secrets, from the Sonar telemetry in our different tools, it says that hard-coded secrets is a top issue. And I assume that the problem is, well, we all know we should not hard-code secrets, right? But why do we have that many projects with hard-coded secrets? Well, I assume that it's because we follow the natural trend. So it's like we create a proof of concept. Yeah, this is only for testing my application. I'm putting the secret there because, yes, it's a test database. And then this evolves, and one day it hits production. And yes, we don't recall that we added some secrets in the code. So we need tools or a lot of eyes in order to check those secrets. So yes, it's a big problem detected even in infrastructure as code and also in programming languages like Java or TypeScript or Python.
I think we all made the mistake of putting test code eventually in production. So your tools are helping to fix these errors or find these errors or be alerted?
Yes, definitely. So in this case, Sonar, but I think it's a reference tool. But obviously, there are other tools that you can check depending on your needs. But these tools will help you from the very beginning in the SDLC. So from the ID, you will have a tool that it is checking your code. It's analyzing your Java code, Python code, or your Kubernetes, Docker, Terraform, or CloudFormation code. And it will show the issues in terms of security, but also if you are not following best practices. For instance, if you are not setting the memory limit for a deployment, for a pod, well, it's not going to break anything, but eventually you will have a bad experience with that. So it's also enforcing best practices. And in some cases, for some rules, also Sonar provides a fix using AI that will help in order to be faster, in order to fix all the issues. But basically, the difference with other tools or with the current trend is that Sonar is a deterministic tool. So if you run the tool 1,000 times with the same code, you will have exactly the same answer. And this is super important compared to other tools that are using AI in order to detect issues that are not deterministic, and they are going to give false positives now and then. So it's important to use these kind of tools that can give you the confidence that you are always sure that those issues are issues.
In the next podcast, Simon Martinelli will tell us more about HTMX, but during the interview he also talked about the influence of chat interfaces on UI development, and he gives a nice description of MCP. Just before we started this recording, you mentioned web development is dead, UI development. What did you mean?
There was a talk from the CIO of Microsoft, and he said, don't invest in UI development anymore because everything will be chat. So either language or typing, doesn't matter. But the user interface in the next few years will become chat-based, no longer form-based, where you have to fill out many fields, just chat with the application. And so that means that the UI may become obsolete. I don't believe that, but that's the prediction. And also the business logic maybe go away somehow, because validation and understanding the data will be part of AI. But what will become very important is your database. So maybe as a tip already, take care of your database, make it consistent, make it fast, make it accessible. And then you're prepared also if that may happen or not. Yeah.
Can I be a little bit scared that AI will be in between everything? We don't know what's happening in these black boxes, why AI decides to return data in some kind of way. I'm a bit scared. What do you think?
Yeah, me too. So very scared, in fact. So because you really don't know what happens, and it's not predictable. So the problem is how, depending on what you do with it, you get a different result. You even get the different result if you do twice the same thing, maybe. And that's a bit scary, right? That's true.
Yeah, I find it very hard to believe that data interpretation of data can be handled by a system like that.
Yeah, me neither. So we were talking with Lovi and Pasha as well. He's also another speaker just before our talk here. And he also said, hey, we learned over the years that the computer exactly does what we want. So if we do it right, the computer does always the right thing. He's never wrong. And with AI, that completely shifts, right? Because you don't know if it's right or wrong by the end. So, but I mean, in my opinion, we are like in the kindergarten of software engineering with AI, right? Either it is AI integrated in application, even if it's AI with chat-based or AI used to generate code. It's really, really early stage. And what we see currently is probably not what we will have in a few years, right?
So you're a bit optimistic about what it can bring in the future.
I hope so, because I was trying out like Junai and Replit and Augment and what else? Copilot and all of these tools. And I was a bit, disappointed, so to say, because it didn't do exactly what I wanted. Because probably also I was using frameworks that I know by heart. And it wasn't the way I would do that. And to bring AI to a point where it does what I want, I need to provide a lot of information. And if I have to write all the information, in a chat, for example, then maybe I'm faster if I just programming, or even if I have the old forms, because going back to UIs are no longer relevant. If you have people that are working every day with an application, they can do that blindly, right? They know it by heart, how it works, what they have to do. And probably that's much more efficient depending on what data entry job do you have.
You mentioned databases are important, so having a good structured way of how your data is organized. You're also a big fan of Duke. Are those kind of tools important here?
Yes, I think, because if you want to provide currently model context protocol becomes new, or it was introduced, and I know already some companies that are planning to create model context protocol servers for their own data, and somehow you have to implement that, the API. And if you already have a relational database, you can use Juke, and then you have type-safe access to the database, and that's some place where I see that could be very beneficial to use.
So can you explain in 2 sentences what is MCP?
Yeah, I'm probably not the right person to ask that question. But now MCP is the idea to have a standardized protocol to interact from a chat-based or agentic AI with something else, right? So you can create an API, and the API is described with some description like OpenAPI or SOAP or whatever we had, Corpa maybe. So in that, and then you can, for example, if you use Claude Desktop, you can integrate the MCP server there and say, okay, that's the MPC server. And then Claude will inspect that API definition and see, okay, these are the capabilities of the API. And now if you chat with that, Claude will see, oh, that's probably the topic that this MCP server can answer, and then he will call the MCP server. So it's a much easier way, because before we had RAC as a possibility to add information to an agent or to a chat. But this is very complicated, because you have to implement that. You have a vector database and stuff like that. And with MCP, you just can wrap your existing API, or you can wrap your data, or you can wrap your documentation, for example. So Markus Hellberg from the Vaadin team did an MCP server for the Vaadin documentation that you can integrate. So the ChatGPT, or not ChatGPT, Claude, for example, will not just guess how Vaadin works. It will consult or try to figure out based on the documentation out.
Emily Jiang was another speaker at JCON with an AI talk. We talked about LLM hallucinations and how to prevent them and make unit tests to validate LLM interaction in a correct way.
I'm here to talk about validating LLMs. Basically, I share a true story, how I lead a team to basically come up with some metrics and to validating basically a few LLMs, including basically the Granite, IBM Granite coding instruct, basically for enterprise Java LLM. So
Because LLMs, they tend to hallucinate, as they call it, and come up with answers which could be correct or not correct. So how do we tackle this?
Yes, exactly. You nailed it. Because LLM is nature to do the hallucination. So it's sometimes you enter something and then repeating the whole sentence back to you. So basically, and the other interesting bit I found out actually is not necessarily LLM have more data and give you better answer. So basically, in my experience, I thought, okay, this is a good LLM, and then adding more data and did more training and find out actually went backwards. So it's basically you do need to come up with a good stable kind of testing framework to make sure the LLM you're going to go with production is the best performant LLM.
But testing an LLM is difficult because it never comes up with twice the same answer. And if you write unit tests, we really expect a specific result. So how can we handle this?
You are spot on. So this will be in my talk. Basically, it's for testing different things. You need to come up with different approach, such as for the unit test. It's like every time you ask to generate a unit test, the first thing, the test method may be different and all variables with different. Actually, things you don't really care about, they might be different. However, you won't be able to use like a ground truth. You can't really write your own unit test with LLM or come up with this answer. So with that, for unit test generation, all you care about is a good code coverage, right? Is that natural Java code? Because when we use basically code assistant, want to generate some code test basically similar to the human written test, right? I'm a developer. If he's my assistant, I expect to write something I can accept. So this is basically for this, we use basically GCON for the code coverage, and also for the Java metrics, this kind of metrics, make sure like the generated Java code is readable and makes sense. And another thing is the one you don't really want 100 test generation for one method, right? So also is kind of some other metrics we came up with for this method. If I'm the tester, I will want to write probably 5 or 6. If it's like a LLM give me 100 tests, that's pretty no to me. Yeah.
So even when using LLMs to generate code, you still need to be sure what it's doing, validate what it's doing, and checking if everything makes sense.
Yeah. So also for the code completion, basically comment to code, that kind of thing, I can't really use like a code coverage metrics anymore. For that, basically also in my including in my talk, we came up with kind of some ground truth, kind of the testing. Basically, we nailed down the prompts, and then we expect some similar code, but it's not exactly same code. So we use a different metrics like a code blue to see the basically similarity kind of check. And it's not exactly like a 100% match. If it's a match like 80%, so that's good enough code. So this is kind of the how to test the generated code. So there's another aspect that basically you also use LLM to summarize the class. So that's kind of sometimes the class maybe is kind of very long. The LLM will give you different sentences all the time, right? You can't really use the true match exactly. Also, you need to do the similarity check. For that, also is kind of is tedious for human beings to write a huge paragraph to explain things and etc. And also LLM may be explained differently. So with that, we use both human in the middle kind of intervention, that kind of metrics, plus LLM as a judge. So this is another kind of good metrics. If LLM can use another LLM to judge the testing LLM kind of the result, also is quite interesting metrics as well. Yeah.
So you have several LLMs competing with each other to give you the best result.
Yeah, exactly. Also, another interesting thing I found out actually, the LLM judge may not be the best LLM to do the work. This similarly applicable to the football judge, also is some other kind of the judge. Maybe he cannot do that well himself, but he knows what should be covered. So we find out that's quite interesting as well. Yeah.
How do you look at how good Java is with AI?
Depends on how good the LLM has been trained with Java, kind of the knowledges and etc. So the LLM, I have been working last year with IBM Research. So basically, I personally searched up a lot. Basically, the Java, the pages and etc. And then I purposely get that data to train LLM. And then also during the testing, we found out LLM is not particular good at some area. Actually, I led one really brand new initiative in IBM I teamed up with some other Java, experienced Java developers. We wrote some data, use that data to train the LLM, and then we can see the difference. Use my basic framework, we can tell after the LLM trained with the special data we wrote is getting better. Yeah. Again, it's depend on the LLM, whether the LLM has been got a special training in some languages, but the Watson X code assistant for enterprise Java from IBM I have been working with did really well on the Java the unit test generation, code completion, and also the code explanation as well.
That's it for this episode. In the next one, you will get the remaining JCON interviews with a lot of tips and tricks to be a better developer. Thanks to my guests and thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the Foojay Podcast in your app or on YouTube. Keep an eye on foojay.io for future articles and podcasts about development and everything related to the Java world. See you!
Give me a foo, give me a J, give me the friends of OpenJDK.